I loved what Jim talked a lot about. He kept on talking about, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And we thought many ways, our planning committee spent a ton of time over the last year putting this together. And we thought, well, do we do 1 or 2 talks, and then do we do breakout sessions and workshops? Because we could spend the entire rest of the day really diving into what just Jim shared and having some conversations and building action plans and going back and doing something with it. And I'm not going to put this person on the spot, but there's a gentleman, a dear friend of mine who's in the room, who came to the Purpose Summit that we did 2 years ago. And they came and they said, oh my gosh, there was just so much there. And we were going to go back. We were going to do all of this stuff. And then 9 months went by and we looked up and we'd done nothing. And that can't happen again. And so what had happened was they came back to the Purpose Summit again last year, and they brought 12 different companies with them. And they said, is there a place on campus that we could gather the companies that we brought so that they don't make the same mistake that we did, so that we take all of this information, then we get together, and then we put a plan together of action of how we're going to go back and we're going to apply this in the next 30, 60, 90 days, and then hold each other accountable. You're going to hear Patricia talk about accountability letter. To the degree of which you guys get together, there's a reason you're sitting at tables, and take what we are sharing with you today and actually say, here is what we are going to go do with this. To that degree is how we are going to change the world. Because if we leave here and do nothing, we change nothing, right? You looked at the messaging of the Culture Forum, and the entire messaging behind the Culture Forum was a global gathering of leaders to build the best cultures in the world. And this stuff isn't fluff. This stuff is hard. You're going to hear Gary talk about it later, right? I shouldn't say that. Culture is actually simple, but it's not easy. This stuff can seem simple, but it's actually really, really hard. And there's something that has been personally bothering me, just grinding my gears for the last couple years, that we have not moved the needle on the culture index. We really haven't. I mean, if you look at Gallup polls, you look at all these different things, we've moved it by a few basis points. But the reality is every year the same statistics come out that X amount of people are disengaged at work, or they have an unhealthy relationship with work. And I thought about, how do I want to start this Power of Purpose talk? Because I am just absolutely fired up that we need to leave here and do something. That more than important than anything that anyone says on this stage or out in that room is what we go back and we do with it. Because that's how we change the world. So I saw this. Anybody see this in the last week that popped up from HP's CEO? So this popped up. He said, the world has an unhealthy relationship with work. A recent survey found that just 27% of knowledge workers feel that they have a healthy relationship with work. 27% have a healthy relationship with work. The article went on to say 83% of people said that they are willing to earn less if it means feeling happier at work. And then he said this, no one should have to choose between earning their worth and enjoying their work. It's critical for companies to foster environments that allow people to excel in their careers while also thriving in their lives. And this statement caught me. And I said, what's getting in the way? Why do we keep on talking about this statistic every single year about a mass majority of the workforce actively disengaged with who they are and what they do? Because the reality is who they are at work has a direct reflection on who they are at home. How they show up at home is a byproduct of what happened at work. And we as leaders have the ability to impact that. So what happens at work, we're not just impacting what happens at work, we're impacting what happens at home. And when you look at some of the things that we are trying to tackle today, some of what I will call thieves of purpose, things that are destroying the fabric of society, things like addiction, depression, suicide, divorce, we can go on and on. All of that stems from this unhealthy relationship that we have with ourselves, with our work, those we lead, and it all stems from culture. And we've been given a gift. We've been given the gift to come together in this room as leaders. We've been given freedom of values where we can all of a sudden look at each and every single person and know, what do you value? We could see each other as human beings rather than just human doings. And we can put that into action and change these statistics. because I have been watching this statistic for years, and we need to do something about it. Because think about the difference that we can make if we can help people have a healthy relationship at work by building healthy cultures. I'm going to end with a quote that you'll probably hear from Gary several times about how that can impact not just our families, our communities, but ultimately the world. So, this idea of purpose, it's becoming a fluffy word for the last 10 years. Everyone's talking about purpose. But the reality is that purpose is not fluff. Purpose is foundational. And long before I was talking about purpose, there were thought leaders talking about purpose. And I read this book called The Purpose Economy by Aaron Hurst. Anyone ever read this book? No? It was published in 2013. Phenomenal book. And I love this cartoon. It shows this rise of the purpose economy. And you've got the way we've been doing business forever. You've got these guys coming out. It says Biz Corp dry since 1884. One guy's having lunch. Other guy's having a cup of coffee. One feels a spritz in the air, throws up an umbrella to kind of avoid whatever rain that he thinks is coming. And then there's this next generation with surfboards. They see this wave of purpose coming, and they are racing towards it. And this captivated me. I mean, this has been around for 10 years, and it is such a powerful image of the way that we've talked about things for years versus what we're actually going to do with them. And has anyone noticed that there's a little bit of a mindset shift between generations? There's 4 generations in the workforce. You got baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, Generation Z. Would we agree that there's a little bit of a mindset difference between those generations? Yes, a little bit. So here's the deal. I'm a member of the Generation X squad, and I have a confession. I used to belittle millennials. In fact, there was a point in time in a senior HR role with a Fortune company where literally someone would come up to me and they would hand me a resume, and the very first thing that I would do is gauge if this person was a millennial. And I'm like, I can't hire them anymore. They don't want to work. All they want is pallet walls and beanbag chairs and coffee counters, and they don't want to do. I can't do it. Right now, that was years ago. I wildly misunderstood them. And I had a cousin of mine, I posted a rant on social media. You shouldn't do that, by the way. I need a 24-hour rule, just so you know. Anybody else need a 24-hour rule? I need a 24-hour rule. I had posted a rant on social media, and my youngest cousin, who's a millennial, she sends me a text message. She says, I'm surprised that someone as intelligent and as articulate as you would write what you wrote on social media. She said, if you want to understand how millennials think, why don't you stop reading books written by your generation and come talk to us? So I did. So I spent 3 years researching the millennial mindset. And here's what I found out. What I found out is that the currency of the workforce had shifted. What I'd realized is that baby boomers and Generation X were taught, go to school, get a great education, find a company to work for 30 years of your life, retire at 62 and a half, get the gold watch, start living off of your pension, your paycheck. And we all bought that. But something happened in 2008. What happened in 2008? There was a recession. There was a little bit of a crash. And here's what happened. The millennials at that time, they were watching their parents' generation, Generation X and baby boomers, they were watching them work 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week in toxic cultures, coming home and giving their families their leftovers instead of their best. They were the generation of parents that were not at the soccer games, not at the dance recitals, not at the kitchen table. They were too busy. And we watch movies about this. And we sit there and we empathize with the kids and the spouses in the movies when they demonize the workaholic character in the movie. Because it was all too real. And they knew that this was what was happening. They were watching it. And when the bottom fell out in 2008, somewhere subconsciously, when people all of a sudden who were retired had to go back to work, when the homes that they grew in, they had to foreclose on, and they had to pack up their things and move somewhere else, somewhere it clicked. And they said, not me. My time's too valuable. I just watched my entire parents' generation save all of that money and watched it get wiped away overnight, and they can't get that time back. You can always make more money, but you can't get time back. And so what had happened, the currency of the workforce shifted. And so what I've been watching happen is boomers and Generation X just thinking that as millennials grow into positions of leadership, that somehow they're just going to mature and they're going to think like we do, and you're going to work hard, you're going to do your job, and you're going to be happy that you have a job. But that's not going to happen. And let me tell you why that's not going to happen. Because the currency of the workforce has shifted. Don't believe me? The stat that we just saw, 87% of people would take less what? Money to have a healthier relationship with what? Their work. This is not some fanfare conversation. This is the reality of what is going on in the workplace. And if you want to figure out how to engage the next generation in your culture, it's not about coffee. It's not about beanbag chairs. It's not about pizza parties. It's not even about the work at home or work at the office conversation. It's not about that. It's about their values. And that's why we started with values. It's about what matters to them. You know, one of the things that's driven me crazy, and I loved what Jim talked about. Jim, when you said that, you know, hey, we could easily hand this out and say, here, circle your top 5 and give this back. Oh, okay, I see that you value security. Tell me more about that. Believe it or not, we do this. We send out candidate assessments that do this type of stuff. And we get all this type of information about the candidate to see if they're a right fit for our company or for our culture. And then we never engage them in the conversation. We hire them into the organization, but then we actually don't sit down and say, hey, when you were filling out your application, I recognize that these 5 things are really important to you. Let's talk about those, right? Even better, don't even do the assessment. Do what Jim said and just make that a part of your onboarding process. What matters to the people who are coming in your organization? Because at the end of the day, here's what they are thinking. They are thinking, I have a finite amount of time in my life that I can't get back. And I can always make more money, especially in this day and age. I can be an influencer. I can sell whatever online. I could do whatever to make money, but I can't get time back. So if I'm going to come and be a part of your culture, I'm going to come and work with you, who am I going to become as a byproduct of working here? What is it that I am a part of? What is the greater purpose that I'm contributing to? How do I get to display my values and what's important to me in this culture that you're inviting me to be a part of? And that is where a lot of companies have not caught up in this conversation. We had talked about work-life balance for decades, where you need to leave your work at work, your home at home, but now we live in a work-life integration society. Work-life balance is no longer a thing. We need to figure out how do work or career, home and family, health and well-being, community and connecting, senses of belonging, how does that all integrate into each other? Because I don't want to be one person at work and one person at home. I don't want to have to segment these areas of my life. But for decades, we did that. In fact, I'm going to share a confession story with you. I've never shared this publicly from a stage, and I felt that I needed to. So back at that same time when I maligned millennials, I used to have a shoe box. And on it, it said, place problems here. And I put it outside my office door. And there was a notepad and pen. And I said, listen, if you've got problems at home, I'm too busy to worry about them. Write them down, put them in the box, come in, let's talk about your work. And when you're done, take your problems with you. I did that 10 years ago. I'm ashamed to admit that, but you know what? You say, ooh, the reality is whether you put people's problems in a shoebox and tell them to take them with you, or you're just not listening and engage with them, it doesn't make a difference. Because that's how they feel. Do you really care what's going on in their lives? We measure employee engagement, but what we actually measure is we ask employees to tell us how we're doing. How likely are you to go ahead and refer someone to come work at our company? Do you see yourself working here in the next 5 to 10 years? How is do you feel like your voice is heard? How's your relationship with your supervisor? How often do we ask them, on a scale of 1 to 10, how fulfilled are you in your work? On a scale of 1 to 10, do you go home energized? Are you a better version of yourself? Worse person of yourself? Are we asking them how they're doing versus asking them how we're doing? Because that's real engagement. That's what they're looking for. And here's the thing, it's not just Millennials and Generation Z. It's all of us because we're all human beings. Somewhere along the lines, there's a whole bunch of Gen X and baby boomers who are still holding on to work, who don't want to retire, who feel like they have a sense of purpose that they need to fulfill, that felt like they had to play by a false set of rules. An entire generation came on and changed the rules, and they'd wanted that all along. And now they have an opportunity to do that. And so this isn't a generational conversation. This is a humanity conversation. We have the opportunity to help people not only understand what their values are, but to help people integrate every aspect of their lives, not just into their work, but around their purpose in every moment, wherever they are, in every room that they're in. So what is purpose? Because this is really, really important, because this is not, and I'm not in any way trying to minimize the ESG or CSR or conscious capital movement or all those different things, but I do feel like purpose has kind of taken off course a little bit to talk more about how we are, whether saving the planet or those sort of things, rather than drilling really, really down and saying, okay, what's Patty's purpose? Why is she here? What are her gifts, talents, abilities? What is she really great at? What is it that the world needs? And how can we help her use that at work today? So that she can see how she makes a difference. How do we connect that to the purpose of our organization so that she understands that she's contributing to something greater than herself? And then how do we recognize her for when she does that so that she feels valued and loved? And then, of course, how is she fairly compensated? And so this is where purpose lives. It is this combination of what people are great at and how well we help them use that where there's a need. And our businesses, our organizations, our cultures are the vehicle to help each and every single person who has different gifts, talents, and abilities to show up every single day and use them. So that when they go home at the end of the day, they could say, oh my gosh, I made a difference today. I made an impact today. I got to show up in the fullness of who I am. And then they go home and they give the best to their families instead of their leftovers. And now we change everything that's going on there. We reverse the statistics around depression, anxiety, suicide, divorce, all of those different things, because our cultures and our places of employment become vehicles to help people show up in the fullness of their purpose at work every single day and feel valued for who they are as human beings. And that's the conversation of purpose that I want to have with you today. Purpose. What is purpose? A lot of people think that purpose and why are the same thing. I love Simon's work on why. I'm going to offer today that there is a delineation between purpose and why. Purpose is your reason for being. It is what you are here to do. And here's the deal, is that it is not singular and grandiose. Now, we can argue that faith is one of my values, and so I could say that on a spiritual level, yes, there's a grandiose purpose for our lives, but the conversation I want to have today is that purpose is plural and it's momentary. I have a purpose as a husband. I have a purpose as a father. I have a purpose as a speaker. I have a purpose as an author. I have a purpose as a coach. I have a purpose as a worship leader at our church. I have multiple different purposes that often compete with each other. So I have to ask the question, what's important now? What purpose do I need to step in right now to make sure that those who are around me are positively impacted because I'm sharing a piece of who I am in the moment? And we often miss those because we don't have a clear sense of what our purpose is. We don't know what our gifts, talents, and abilities are. A lot of times people tell us what they are and we dismiss them, either because we're trying to be polite or we're dealing with imposter syndrome or we don't believe it or whatever the case is. But the reality is each one of us has unique gifts, talents, abilities, skill sets that if we show up every single day and we use them, we change the environments that we're in moment by stepping into our reason for being, what we're here to do. And then there's some of these other words, like, went the wrong way. There's some of these other words, like mission. We throw the word mission out there. Well, what is mission? Mission is the actual impact of your purpose. So once you're clear on what your purpose is, individually and organizationally, I would argue that this is the same conversation for you as a human being and also for your organization. Once you are clear on what your purpose is, now I want you to ask, well, what's the actual impact that I want to have? If we come up with a really great purpose statement for our organization, what is the actual impact that we want to have? Mission is the impact of your purpose. And then vision, this is where I lose people, is the impact of your mission. Well, what do I mean by that? I'm going to tell you a story that explains that, but you might have a mission of what you want to accomplish, but beyond that mission, there's actually a vision of what you want to see happen that is a deeper root cause behind the mission. And then your why, which is different than purpose, is your reason for doing. It's your motivation. Hear me on this. You could be very clear about what your purpose is and not get up in the morning and want to do it. Not have the motivation. I've had days where I got up in the morning, I'm like, I know what my purpose is as a husband, as a father, as a speaker, as an author, but my motivation wasn't there. And so what I need to have happen is I need to have a why that's in my head that is going to motivate me to step into my purpose. So your purpose is your reason for being. Your why is your reason for doing. Culturally, what does this mean? You could be clear about telling people what the purpose of your organization is, but if they don't understand why it's important, it won't motivate them to be a part of it. So are you clear about what your purpose as an organization is? Are you clear about what the purpose of your people are? Are you aligning those things? And then do you understand their why, what their motivation is? And do they understand your why as an organization? Because it can't just be about bottom line dollars. It has to be about impact. So let me tell you a story that kind of ties this all together. This is my son, Bennett. Bennett loves to go fast. He is a fast kid. And he loves superheroes. And so, of course, his favorite superhero is the Flash, because the Flash is fast. And so he's riding his bike, and one day he comes up to me and he says, Dad, my bike isn't going as fast as I would like it to go. And the gears had been kind of grimy, and he likes to leave it outside, so they were a little bit rusty, and so the bike wasn't going fast. So I went into my garage, and I grabbed WD-40. That's exactly right. You knew it was going to happen at some point, right? So I grab a little can of WD-40, and I spray the gears. I turn the bike upside down, and we pedal it, and it starts going faster, and then he gets on the bike, and whew, he's gone. Now, what is the purpose of WD-40? And Gary will tell you it's to build positive, lasting memories in the homes. I'm not going to steal his line. What is the actual purpose? If you were to read like the back of the can, and it says purpose, what's the actual purpose of the product? It's a what? Lubricant. It's a lubricant. That's its purpose, right? That's its reason for being. Well, actually, thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. So good. So I think there's 101 different purposes, no? Yes, there's a whole sheet, right? You're the reason that the Evergreen ship in the Suez Canal actually got unstuck, right? There's a whole. So it's a lubricant. That's what it is. So the purpose of the can is a lubricant. It's to clean the gears. That's the mission. The mission is to get the gears to go fast. So the purpose is a lubricant. The mission is to clean the gears. What do you think the vision behind this is? To see Bennett go fast. And what's my why? Him. So the purpose of the product was to clean the gears. The mission was so that the bike could go fast. The vision was so that my son can go fast. And my why is him. We all have stories like that for the work that we do and for our organizations, but we don't tell it in a way that makes sense to people. So how are you articulating what the purpose of your organization is, what the mission of that purpose is, and then ultimately really what the vision is, what the real world impact is, and then the why behind that? We can apply that to the culture forum here today. The purpose was to bring together a global gathering of leaders. The mission was to create the best cultures in the world. The vision is so that people will go home and have a happier, healthy relationship with their work and their families. And the why? Is there anyone here who doesn't want that? So why aren't we doing something about it? Fortunately, you are here today. So let's talk about how this applies, not just organizationally, but how this shows up in the actual infrastructure of work, individually in organization. So I've identified that there are really 3 different areas of purpose. You've got organizational purpose, so you've got the purpose of what your company exists to do. You've got associate or employee purpose, which you just talked about, which is their reason for being that's there. And then you've got customer purpose. There's a reason that your customers buy your product or engage in your service because there's something that your product or service does that fulfills a purpose for them. And so you've got this triangular relationship going on. And we talk a lot about experience, but we don't talk a lot about purpose in the way that we should be talking about purpose. So you have the associate or the employee experience, if you will, and we spend a lot of time talking about the associate-employee experience. And really, what is the associate and employee experience? It is as healthy as the degree as which the organizational purpose and the associate purpose overlap. So how well do your people within your culture understand the purpose of your organization? And how well do you as leaders understand their purpose as individuals within your organization? And are both things being fulfilled? And to the degree that those things are being fulfilled is the degree that the associate experience as well. And then you've got the organizational purpose and the customer purpose. And we talk a lot about brand experience. Well, what's the brand experience? Anybody ever buy a brand that promises to deliver and then it doesn't? How was your experience? Are you buying it again? No. Why? Because it didn't fulfill the purpose that you bought it for. So a company can tout that it's got a really great organizational purpose, but if its product or brand doesn't deliver on that purpose to you as a customer, you've got a poor brand experience. So there has to be alignment between organizational purpose and customer purpose. And then here is where it usually falls apart. Is the relationship between the associate purpose and the customer purpose, which is the customer experience. Man, we hire a lot of sales companies to teach us how to drive sales. What we really need to do is align associate purpose and customer purpose. I checked into the Marriott this week. I'm a Marriott guy. And we walked in, and there was 2 different associates, literally on opposite sides of the counter. And I'm observing the customer experience that's happening. And one of them is literally, next, can I help you? Comes up. Hi, how can I help you? I'm checking in. Do you have your driver's license on you? Yep, here it is. Okay. All right, looks like you're here with us for 2 nights, Mr. Smith. Yep. All right, here we go. Please insert your card. Okay. Elevators are down there to the left. Have a good day. Next, can I help you? That was experience number 1 over here. Experience number 2. These people are working side by side at the same time. Experience number 2. Wonderful girl named Anna. And she's like, hi, can I please help? Who's next? Comes up. Hi, Mr. Jones. How you doing today? Thank you so much for checking in and staying with us. Hey, I see that you're a Marriott Bonvoy member. We appreciate your loyalty. Thank you so much for being here today. She said, how many nights are you going to be here with us today? 3? Excellent. So I have you on upper room with this, and I also see that you're a platinum member. Our M Lounge is over here. It's open at this time to this time. Is there anything else that I can personally do to make sure that your stay is more enjoyable with us? Side by side conversations happening. I wanted to videotape it. It's very, very clear. The purpose of the organization didn't change, but the associate on the left was not clear about what either the customer's purpose was of why the experience that they wanted to have to stay there and how they could step into that, and the other one was. So to the degree that we can help our associates within our cultures know what their purpose is and the difference that they can make every day by using the gifts that Anna had to connect people to the purpose that they're there to experience our products and services, we create great customer experiences. And then that's where value and impact happen. You want to talk about measuring value and impact? You measure value and impact by to the degree that you are measuring the overlap of these purposes. So just to summarize that real quick. How well are you connecting your organizational purpose to associate purpose and vice versa? Not just telling them, here's our purpose statement. No. Why are you here? Does this resonate with you? Let me show you how you show up in that. Does your brand do the same thing with the customers and does it deliver? And then if there's clarity around that, do your associates deliver with your customers? This is a really, really good book that came out in 1986 called The Experience Economy. So this predates the purpose economy. And it really talks about what's important to people. You could see that back in the day, we had commodities, and then we had goods, and then we started providing services, and then we started providing experiences, and then we provided transformations. And there's different critical questions that really get to the heart of the purpose of each of these layers of economic value. Commodities is very, very simple. I know what the product is, and it's just how much do I want. Goods asks a different question. What is it actually that you want to buy, And then let me see if we can either make that or package that so that it delivers on the need that you have. It delivers on its purpose. And then there's services. What can we do for you? And that's delivering on a different purpose. And there's a lot of people out there that are competing in the commodities, goods, and services space, and they are trying to win on either quality or price or value. And there's very few that are competing on these topper tiers of economic value, which is, what is it actually that you want to do? And most importantly, who is it that you want to become? See, if you look at the rise of the tech industry, almost everything that's happened in the tech industry has been innovation around who people want to become. And in many ways, it's a recipe for how our cultures should operate. Why are our cultures not operating at the highest level of economic value? Rather than just providing a job and compensation, which is just transactional, a paycheck and perks, are we providing purpose and partnership? Are we helping them do what they want to do? Are we helping people become who they want to become? There are 3 different mission fields in our organization when it comes to creating transformations. Number 1 is our people. Mission field number 1 is our people. Who are we helping our people become because they work in our cultures? Number 2 are their families. How are we sending them home? Because to the degree of what happens at home is a direct correlation to what happens at work. So if we could focus on who we're helping our people become at work, we can have an indirect impact on who we help them become at home. And then those we serve, our customers, our vendors, our communities. Here's the thing. We spend a lot of time on number 3. We spend a ton of time at number 3 on how we deliver to our customers, how we improve our communities, how we improve the world, but we don't spend a lot of time on who we're helping our people become and who we're helping our families become. In fact, again, I kind of had a soapbox moment, but when we started talking about ESG scores and all those things, which again, I'm not demeaning that in any way, but I may or may not. How many of you have met Lisa Oprita? Is she in the room? Yes. So yeah, she's over there. So she doesn't like when I call her out from stage, but I just did. And she did a phenomenal job helping put all this on. But she is often the recipient of many of my rants in the office, and to that I thank you for your grace. But I remember saying, "What good is it if we save the planet, but 87% of the people who are on it are miserable? What good is that? What good is it if all we do is focus on improving the world that we live in, but not improving the people who live in it?" And that is the conversation that I would challenge you on. Are you asking yourself, are we being good stewards of our organization and asking, who are we helping our people become? And then how are we sending them home? Who are we helping their families become? And then as a byproduct of that, how are they changing the world and the communities that they serve? And then how are we as an organization then impacting on all of the social good that we should still do? This is my daughter, Vera. This was before she turned 12 and now thinks she's 21 and has all the answers to life. So we used to do this nosy thing, and she has a gift for singing. We like to sing. And one day we were driving to school, and we used to sing in the car all the way to school, and then I would be looking back, and she'd be singing, I'd be singing, and then I would drop her off at school, and then I would go to work. And one day it was raining, pouring raining, and she's singing, I'm singing, and I pull up. In Michigan, we've got these things where you put your left-hand turn signal on, and then like the road kind of goes around the shoulder, and people are supposed to pass you. They're not supposed to stop. And so I put the left-hand turn signal on, and car goes around me, and then the next thing I know, car behind us hit us at 50 miles an hour at a dead stop and crushed the car all the way to Vera's seat. That seat saved her life. I don't remember much of that. All I remember is that I went forward, I hit the steering wheel, I went backward, and I ended up breaking the chair to the point that I was paralyzed with my daughter. Not paralyzed, parallel, sorry. Clearly I'm not paralyzed. parallel with my daughter, and she's just crying, and I can smell gas, and all I'm thinking is I need to get out of the car. And the person who hit us, thank God, she was okay. She comes out of the car, and she gets up, and she's like, she was bleeding, her hands, her face. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And my 4-year-old daughter says, you're a bad driver. Ron Carucci, you're going to hear from him tomorrow. He wrote a book called To Be Honest. Vera was way ahead of his time. So I remember that, but then the next thing I remembered was this. Sitting in a bed, thinking about the person who I'd been, thinking about the shoe boxes that I'd asked people to put their problems in, thinking about the millennials that I called lazy, thinking about the 60, 70, and 80 hours a week that I was working for a Fortune 8 company and not being present at home, sending another text message, sorry, I'm not going to make it home to the dinner tonight. Sorry, I got to travel again this weekend. I'm not going to be at this. I had a lot of time sitting in this bed thinking about what was my real purpose? Who was I becoming? Who was I helping my family become? What is it that really mattered? And what I realized was that success, while we love to chase success, is fleeting. It could be over like that. But significance lives on, as Jim just shared in his last quote at the end of his talk. And so a friend of mine gave me this book, and it's called Halftime by Bob Buford. Anybody ever read this book, Halftime? Phenomenal book. So this book argues that we are conditioned for success. We are conditioned to achieve more, get the bigger house, get the next car, take the next vacation, do all these things bigger, better, faster. But somewhere along your life journey, and he argues between the ages of 35 and 55, no matter how much success you achieve, there's going to be an emptiness. And the reason why is because while this world might condition us for success, we're created for significance. There is a purpose living inside each and every single one of you, a gift that you're supposed to be using, a talent that you're supposed to be sharing. And that same purpose exists in the people of those that we lead in our organizations and in our cultures. And so are we helping our people unlock their significance at work? Or are we just putting performance plans in place to help them catch the next ladder of success? Because that's what we've been doing for decades. It's been about climbing the corporate ladder, merit increases, next title, whatever that is. It's always been about success. But you don't need a performance improvement plan or a performance development plan to help people unlock their significance at work. That can happen today. It can happen tomorrow. The way that we find purpose at work, which was the book that I ended up writing after this accident and flipped my entire world upside its head, was specifically designed to say, listen, you can make a difference. And the way that we do that is let's talk about what are the things that you're good at. Are you using them today at work? And if not, why? How can we help you do that? Is there a role or function that we can either put you in that can use those capabilities or one that we can create for you, right? How can we apply it to your current job? And guess what? This isn't some kumbaya message because sometimes you have people who are wrong fits for the organization. I'm not saying that I have had to let go of many, many people in my life and I didn't always do it in the right way. But I will tell you there is one person who sticks in my mind who was the wrong fit for the job that they were in at the company that I was leading. And it was a very graceful conversation, X. And I literally just said to them, I said, you know, I look at you and you're not fulfilled in the work that you do. Talk to me about what you really want to be doing. And they started to talk to me about it. And it was very clear that they couldn't do that in the job or function that they were in. And they couldn't even do it in the company the way that we were structured. And I said, let's go help you find an opportunity to do that. And I helped them find their next opportunity there they can use their gift, their purpose at work. And so people are not commodities. Everyone has something to offer. Some of them fit in our organization, some of them don't. Some of them fit in certain roles and functions. Some of them need to be in different roles and functions. But are we taking the time to ask the questions to help them find that purpose at work? And it comes back to their reason for being, the resources that they have within them, and where there's a need, and understand how we connect them to that need, and then understanding what their motivation is. What is their why? Are we clear about what those things are? And then there's one word I haven't talked about yet, and that's who. This is where I've actually lost some people on our team. I'm like, listen, there's a who behind your why, behind the purpose. They're like, what? So if I were to do root cause analysis in this room right now, and I were to start asking you what it is you do, why it is that you do that, why is that important to you, and we were to keep on going down that rabbit trail, ultimately you would tell me a story about someone in your life who is the reason that you get up every day to continue to put one foot in front of the other when life gets too hard. And everyone has that person. And in our people's most challenging times, if we can remind them of who that person is, we can immediately help them step back into their purpose and improve performance. But we often don't even take the time to let them know what their purpose is, let alone to know what their motivation is, let alone to understand who it is that inspired them to do what they do. When's the last time you asked someone why they chose to go into the field that they did? And dig down deep enough to understand who their inspiration is, so that when things get hard, you can bring them back to that moment and say, do you remember what your grandfather said to you? Do you remember this? And remind them not just of their purpose, but their motivation behind it. How many of you have seen the show New Amsterdam? I don't watch a lot of TV, but I love, love, love this show. So, opening episode of this show, not ruining anything for you, this is the pilot, like literally 5 minutes into the show. Max is the medical director of this hospital in New York called New Amsterdam. And Max calls an assembly together of all of the doctors, all the surgeons, board of directors, nurses, they're all in there. And he says, everyone in the cardiology department, please raise your hands. And they all raise their hands. And he says, you're all fired, every single one of you. And a look of bewilderment, confusion on their face. They pick out their cell phones. They're calling their lawyers. And he says, any department in this hospital that puts profitability and billing above patient care and needs cannot work in my hospital. Get out. And he fires them all. And then he asks all the oncologists to raise their hands, and they all kind of go. And he says, how you have tried to fight the greatest battle in human health with the limited resources this hospital has given you is beyond me. I'm hiring you all 2 new assistants tomorrow. Let's be doctors again. And he calls them back to their purpose. And he reminds them of who they are and what they're there to do. And then what you find out is there's actually a who behind his why and why he did that. You see, his younger sister had a heart condition. And before he was ever the medical director of this hospital, she went to that hospital for care. And the hospital could have actually treated her and saved her with this new technology that they could have invested in, but they didn't want to invest in the technology. And so they didn't spend the money to invest in the technology, and his sister died because they cared more about the bottom line than they did their purpose as an organization, which was saving her life. And from that day forward, that became his why. I'm going to lead this hospital, and we are never, ever going to put profitability over patient care. There was a who behind his why that was clear, that he used to inspire everybody else around that hospital, around their purpose. And then we talk about leadership. Man, you're going to hear Gary share some stories later today and some others, but the essence of leadership is being fully present in the moment. Let me say that again. The essence of leadership is being fully present in the moment, because you shouldn't need an engagement survey to understand how someone is doing. You can see it on their faces. I was literally just having a conversation with Erica, our producer in the back, and she said, hey, at the Purpose Summit, we're going to put up a little camera up here, and this camera is going to be able to look at people's faces, and it's going to be able to tell how engaged they are and how happy and where the energy levels in the room go and everything. And I'm sitting here and go, why is it that we create technology like that, but we've been given this gift of human beings to be able to show up in front of people and just be able to read their facial expression and understand whether or not they're okay? And one of the greatest leaders that I ever worked for was a guy named Jim Sinegal. Jim Sinegal was the CEO and founder of Costco. And this guy was a walking, talking engagement survey. He would walk around and he would literally, I kid you, khaki pants, kind of like Jake from State Farm. Khaki pants, button-down shirt, name badge that just said Jim, and he would just walk up and he would just say, "Hey, I'm Jim. What's your name?" Now, he knew what my name was because I had a name badge that said Davin. But he didn't want to ask me because he wanted to make a human connection. So he looked at me and he said, "I'm Jim. What's your name?" And I said, "Davin." And he said, "Davin, tell me, why do you work here? Why do you work at Costco? What is it that we're doing well? What could we be doing better?" And then he said this to me. He said, "What are your goals and dreams? And by working at Costco, do you see yourself fulfilling them?" And I thought, this guy, I'm like a marketing guy at Costco, and he's the CEO and founder, and he's stopping to ask me about my goals and dreams and whether or not by working for his organization, I'm going to fulfill them. And so one of the things he used to do is he would walk around, and if he saw someone with a frown on their face, he would just look up to them and he would say, "Oh, I'm sorry. You dropped your smile." And Patty smiled. Right? He was a present leader. He was the CEO and founder of this big company, but he was present in front of every single person that he was in front of. You don't have to be all things to all people. You just need to be all of you to the person right in front of you. And so what I love about Max is in every single episode, he's asking this question, how can I help? Every episode, he is literally walking in to situations, stressful situations, chaotic situations. He's a fully present leader, and he's asking, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? The greatest question you can ask as a leader is, how can I help? And then deliver on that. Because if you ask, you will find out what's going on in people's lives. You will find out what their motivation is. You will find out what their why is. You will find out who their who is. You will get to the deepest root of the things that drive culture in a way that help people become the best versions of themselves at work so that they could be the best versions of themselves at home. Because for me, I've got multiple whys, but my main why is very simple, and it's my family. And it shouldn't need to take a car hitting you at 50 miles an hour for you to wake up and realize what's really important in this world. And if you take anything away from this message, I hope it's that. This is my wife, Amy, son, Bennett, daughter, Vera. This is my why. And every single person in this room has a why. Every single person in your organization has a why, and there's a who behind it. Do you know their names? How many of you are so busy at work that you've forgotten actually the names of the kids of the people that work with you or their spouses, and you just say, how's your wife doing? How's your daughter doing? How's your son doing? I mean, something so simple and fundamental as remembering the names of the family members of the people who work closest with you. Start there. Start building human connection by prioritizing the names of the faces of the who's that are behind the whys, that are behind the purpose of people. It's a very simple task. I would challenge you the very next time that you ask someone, how's your spouse? Or how's your wife or husband? Or how's your daughter or son? Don't be afraid to say, you know what, I'm sorry. I should remember their name. What's your daughter's name again? What's your son's name again? I'll remember that. Build that human connection. Don't miss that purpose point, because that is how strong cultures are formed. The names of the faces of the people that we get to do this stuff with. Gary, my favorite quote of his, you'll hear him say it later. Happy people create happy families. Happy families create happy communities. Happy communities create a happy world, and by God, we need a happy world. And you'll hear him say that later together. But you have to connect on a human level. You have to understand what is important to the people that you are leading, and not just create a culture that's a bunch of words on a wall, but a culture that is a vehicle to help people become the fullness of who they were created to be, both at work and at home. Purpose can seem really, really big. It can seem like this monumental global thing. How do we make a difference? I was just having a conversation Just having a conversation at dinner last night about how, you can look at what's going on in the world. My heart grieves what is happening in the Middle East right now and the lives that are impacted. And you could start looking at that, and we ought to do everything that we can to pray and to help and provide all those things that we can in support for humanity. But you could very, very quickly look at things that are going on in the world and then quickly say, I can't make a difference. I can't do anything about that. And so I would encourage you that the way that we change the world, why we can make a big difference on a global scale, is by starting where our feet are. It's by starting with the people who are in front of us, those that we lead at work, those that we lead at home, stepping into moments and asking, how can we help? Stepping in, building relational connections and understanding their values. Because when we switch our mindset to stop looking at the world like this and start looking at the world like this is how we change the world. By how we touch it, moment by moment, with the people that are placed in our lives, in the rooms that we get to be in the cities that we get to go in, and then take that message from this place and do something with it. Not just words on a notebook, not just something that sounds good. Say, no, I'm committed to not just being a better leader. I'm committed to being a better human being. I'm going to change my mindset from being a human doing to being a human being, so I could be fully present as a leader, so I can help people step into the fullness of the purpose that they were created for, so we could change the world together. So, next time that you're lost for words, just simply say, how can I help? And then listen, and then act. So, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.